There's not a messier, more complicated family than the Pleasants. From extramarital affairs, to neglect, to sibling rivalries, the Pleasants, despite the name, are far from that. In today's video, we're gonna walk through the history of one of The Sims' most prominent and long-lasting families as the games were released, culminating in one complete timeline. So you won't want to miss it. And remember, you can continue to support me making deep dives like this by subscribing to mynameiSgons.com. That's where I share early access to new videos, behind the scenes stuff, and let patrons vote on which stories I cover next. If you become a supporter, I'll add your sim self as extras in the in-game footage so you can become a permanent fixture of my videos as well as add your name to the end credits. Also, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below telling me your favorite moment. And don't forget, after you subscribe, click the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Okay, so let's go back in time to where the Pleasant story first began. The Sims 1 introduced us to Jeff and Diane Pleasant along with their kids Daniel and Jennifer when the game launched in 2000. Unlike other families, the Pleasants didn't start with a designated home, giving players the freedom to place them wherever they wanted from the family bin. Jeff Pleasant is a middle-aged military man serving in SimNation's elite forces, which sounds impressive, but it's actually one of the lowest levels of the military career. His bio says he dreams of becoming the first Sim to walk on Mars, and while that might sound random, it's actually not. In the military career, the second highest rank is astronaut, and one of its chance cards actually gives players the option to travel to Mars. This doesn't directly tie into the Pleasant story, but here's a fun fact. While The Sims was in development, Maxis was also working on a game called Sim Mars. It was eventually cancelled due to the unexpected success of The Sims, but it's pretty clear that Jeff's Mars reference was meant as a little Easter egg to that project. That connection shows up again in The Sims Vacation, the game's 4th expansion pack, where an arcade cabinet called Sims Mars was added, another nod to the scrap title. Jeff's wife Diane is a full-time homemaker. Her bio suggests her goal is to gain social standing for her family. Interestingly, Jeff and Diane appear as friends, not family, in the relationship panel. Whether that was intentional or a simple oversight has never been clarified, but it does serve as an interesting step towards the Pleasant family's saucy history. Their kids, Danielle and Jennifer, are siblings, but because The Sims didn't include ages back then, we don't know who's older or if they're twins. They share identical stats and nearly identical bios, but visually they differ. Jennifer takes after her mother's skin tone and her father's hair color, while Daniel is the other way around. Based on Jennifer's outfit, we can assume she, at the very least, enjoys playing soccer. The Pleasants also appear in the Sims console version, once again available in the family bin. That said, the console release isn't canon. The town Willville, located in Sim Valley, is essentially a remixed version of the PC neighborhood, but many of the Sims' personalities and careers don't match their mainline counterparts. This all checks out since the console port wasn't developed by Maxis, but by Edge of Reality, which explains a lot of these strange inconsistencies. As The Sims continued to expand, The Sims Unleashed, the game's 5th expansion pack and the one that completely overhauled the base game, introduced players to the newly renamed Old Town, and with it, a brand new household, the Burb family at 63 Gunther Goth Highway. According to their household bio, Brad Burb had grown tired of the chaos of city life and decided to move his family somewhere quieter. Unfortunately, that decision didn't sit well with his wife, Tiffany, who loves shopping, fashion, and all things urban. She clearly resents Brad for uprooting their lives and dragging her to Old Town, but their son, Johnny Burb, is the complete opposite of his mom. He's a sweet kid who loves frogs, mud, and spending time outdoors, especially with his best friend, their dog Tucker, who Johnny insists is the best dog in the world, even though Tucker sometimes acts like a cat. Now, you might be wondering why the Burbs are showing up in a video about the Pleasants. Well, that's because Johnny Burb and Jennifer Pleasant eventually fall in love, as revealed later in The Sims 2. With the release of The Sims 2 in 2004, we learned that the game takes place 25 years after the events of The Sims 1. We also learned that Old Town and Pleasantview are the same location, based on clues in-game, suggesting that Old Town was eventually downsized and restructured by SimCity into what we know now as Pleasantview. And to our surprise, we find Daniel Pleasant again, now a middle-aged man living with his wife Mary Sue and their twin daughters Angela and Lilith. Daniel works as an assistant coach, and his bio reveals that his father Jeff passed away without ever achieving his dreams of going to Mars, something Daniel feels personally guilty for. While Daniel's haunted by guilt, Mary Sue channels her energy into work. She's kind and considerate, but she's also a bit of a workaholic, an intern in the politics career with dreams of becoming mayor. Interestingly, the Pleasants are the second richest family in Pleasantview, right behind the Goths. That aligns with Daniel's career, and for years players have speculated that Pleasantview is actually named after the family. There's no direct evidence of that though. It's more likely a coincidence, especially since the film Pleasantville had been released years earlier, and the similarities between that movie and this suburban neighborhood are a little too on the nose. Mary Sue was adopted by Herb and Coral Oldie, a couple who dedicated their lives to working hard, nurturing their marriage, and raising a loving daughter. Looking at their memories, we see that Herb and Coral woohooed right before adopting Mary Sue, which implies they couldn't conceive and chose adoption instead. The Oldies appear in the family bin, but they already have relationships with their daughter and granddaughters and enjoy visiting the Pleasants as often as they can. Growing up, Mary Sue met Cassandra Goth, and the two became best friends almost immediately. This suggests Mary Sue was around during the time of The Sims 1, though she doesn't appear in that game. Angela and Lilith Pleasant are Daniel and Mary Sue's twin teenage daughters. Angela is patient, polite, and responsible, with the oddly specific dream of becoming a fishing boat captain. Lilith, on the other hand, is rebellious, goth, and failing at school. The sisters can't stand each other, and Lilith claims it's because their parents favor Angela, and if you check their memories, she's not wrong. Angela was taught all her toddler skills like potty training and walking, while Lilith wasn't, implying that Daniel and Mary Sue neglected her, which explains a lot of her resentments towards the family. Angela is dating Dustin Broke, the eldest son of Brandy Broke and the late Skip Broke. And in true overprotective dad fashion, Daniel absolutely hates Dustin, probably because he's dating his favorite daughter, which is weirdly overbearing. Meanwhile, Lilith is dating Dirk Dreamer, who happens to be the son of Darren Dreamer, childhood friend of Cassandra Goth, Mary Sue's best friend. That's already a tangled web, but it gets messier. Cassandra is secretly having an affair with Darren, despite being engaged to Don Lothario, who's also cheating with the maid Kaylin Langerak. Mary Sue is completely unaware of any of this because she's buried in her career, but she has her own family drama to worry about. Daniel and Mary Sue's relationship is barely hanging on. They don't hate each other, but they're not friends or even romantically connected, hinting that their marriage wasn't built on love. If you check Daniel's memories, you'll see that he too is having an affair with Kaylin Langerak, the same maid involved with Don Lothario. Mary Sue, of course, has no idea, and the game itself is designed to expose it. The household starts with Mary Sue at work while Daniel rolls the want to woohoo Kaylin. If left unattended, he'll invite her over. Mary Sue then gets a chance card that lets her come home early shortly after, potentially catching him in the act. Naturally, fans have argued for years about who's to blame for their collapsing marriage. Daniel is obviously in the wrong for cheating, but some fans argue that Mary Sue's obsession with her career drove him away. Personally, I think that's nonsense. The only person responsible for cheating is the one doing it. Still, it's clear they have major communication issues and probably would have been better off apart. What makes this entire situation even wilder is the web connecting all of these relationships. Daniel's having an affair with Kaylin, and Kaylin is having an affair with Don Lothario, who's engaged to Cassandra Goth, who's having an affair with Darren Dreamer, whose son Dirk is dating Lilith Pleasant, whose mother, Mary Sue, is Cassandra's best friend. And of course, Mary Sue is married to Daniel. It's honestly the most chaotic love hexagon in Sims history, and feels like one bad day away from blowing up the entire neighborhood. Jennifer, Daniel's sister, is thankfully far less dramatic. She's married to Johnny Burb, who now goes by John, and they have a young daughter named Lucy. Their bio explains that John and Jennifer left Old Town for SimCity, but eventually returned to Pleasantview after Lucy was born. Brad and Tiffany have since passed away, but John remembers them fondly. Jennifer gave up her dream of becoming a soccer star and now focuses on fashion instead. Lucy is younger than her cousins Angela and Lilith, but already has a mischievous streak. The big question that remains is what happened between Daniel and Mary Sue meeting and their marriage falling apart. Luckily for us, The Sims 3 gives us some answers. When The Sims 3 released in 2009, the series didn't move forward, it went backward in a very literal way. The game's first world, Sunset Valley, takes place 25 years before the events of The Sims 1. The bio even states before Pleasantview there was Sunset Valley, explaining that the Goth family founded it while the Landgrabs built it into a thriving town. If you've seen my Goth family video, you'll remember that the Goths also founded Old Town, which means Sunset Valley is likely the same place as Old Town and, by extension, Pleasantview. When the Landgrabs eventually left, the town began to decline. Over time, SimCity stepped in, renaming it Old Town before revitalizing it decades later as Pleasantview. But to everyone's surprise, even though the Goths, Crumplebottoms, and Bachelors all return in The Sims 3, Jeff and Diane Pleasant are completely missing. This marks the first time the Pleasant family doesn't appear in a mainline Sims game. Their absence suggests that the Pleasants probably arrived in Old Town long after Sunset Valley's downfall, making them fairly new to the neighborhood by the time of The Sims 1. Despite that, the Pleasants do eventually return to The Sims 3 in the downloadable world of Sunlit Tides. Released in 2012, Sunlit Tides is a tropical island paradise where Sims come looking for love, or maybe just a fling. And it's here, among the beaches and palm trees, that we run into a young Daniel and Mary Sue Pleasant. Now, I know what you're thinking. I just said The Sims 3 takes place 25 years before The Sims 1, which would put it about 50 years before The Sims 2. So how are Daniel and Mary Sue here as young adults? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The Sims 3 isn't bound to one single point in time. The Sims 3 broke the mold by establishing that each world exists at a different point in the larger Sims timeline. Worlds like Riverview and Sunset Valley take place before The Sims 1, Roaring Heights falls between The Sims 1 and 2, and futuristic worlds like Oasis Landing and Lunar Lakes happen long after The Sims 2. Given Daniel and Mary Sue's age and the fact that they don't have kids yet, it's safe to assume Sunlit Tides takes place a few years before The Sims 2. Their household bio describes them as newlyweds on their honeymoon. Daniel is athletic, charismatic, flirty, and already struggling with commitment issues, which pretty much confirms that his affair with Kaylin Langrak in The Sims 2 wasn't about feeling neglected. He's just awful. Mary Sue, on the other hand, is a perfectionist, emotional, and overworked, but she sees herself as a hopeless romantic. Their relationship is still strong at this point, which makes what happens later in The Sims 2 even sadder. Daniel is also friends with the widow named Larita Pepper and knows her kids Penelope and Martin. This suggests he's spending a bit too much time with them, further proof that he's, well, kind of the worst. The fact that Daniel shows his womanizing tendencies as early as his honeymoon, combined with how dysfunctional he and Mary Sue are as parents later, makes the Pleasants one of the most scandalous families in Sims history. So naturally, fans waited with bated breath to see what would become of them in the next chapter of the series, The Sims 4. When The Sims 4 released in 2014, the Pleasants were once again nowhere to be found. There was a lot of confusion around the game's announcement, especially when it came to where The Sims 4 fit into the overall Sims timeline. I've talked about this a lot before, so here's the short version. During the E3 conference where The Sims 4 was officially revealed, a Maxis employee was asked on Twitter about where the game sits on the timeline. Their response was that they felt The Sims 4 took place in an alternate timeline, saying it was simply the easiest way to bring back fan-favorite Sims. Since then, that one statement has echoed across the community and, over time, became accepted as fact. But the truth is, the Sims team has never actually confirmed this. In fact, much of their own marketing and several later expansions directly contradict the idea of an alternate universe. If you check the Sims wiki or any other online source, they all trace that theory back to that single tweet. So if you want to believe it, go ahead. But personally, I think The Sims 4 functions just like The Sims 3, with each world existing at different points in the overall timeline. Yes, trailers show iconic Sims together, and yes, you can freely travel between worlds, but that's mostly for gameplay and marketing. Remember, the lore only exists up until the moment you press play. After that, the story belongs to you. In 2019, to celebrate The Sims' 19th anniversary, classic Sims from The Sims 2 were added to The Sims 4 gallery, including the return of the Pleasant family. Daniel is once again a romantic, outgoing, non-committal flirt, while Mary Sue is a romantic perfectionist. Surprisingly, the two actually have a solid relationship, both friendly and romantic, which is the complete opposite of how they were portrayed in The Sims 2. Angela is a neat foodie, and Lilith is a mischievous loner with a penchant for stealing. Strangely, the sisters get along this time, and Lilith even has a strong relationship with her parents. It's clear the Sims team wanted these versions to be recognizable callbacks rather than true continuations of their story, so these are effectively not canon. But later that same year, the Sims 4 Discover University expansion pack changed everything. In Britechester, we find the Pleasant twins as young adults attending rival universities. Angela studies art history at the University of Britechester, while Lilith studies villainy at Foxbury Institute. Man, I love this game. The twins keep the same traits as their gallery versions, but their relationship status tells a more nuanced story. They're acquaintances, not enemies, suggesting that while the rivalry between them has softened, they're still cautious around each other. Given their age, it's safe to assume Discover University takes place a few years after The Sims 2, meaning time may have healed at least some of those old wounds. While their parents aren't mentioned, the fact that the twins can afford their own home rather than living in dorms is a subtle nod to their family's wealth. Unfortunately, we never learn what became of Daniel and Mary Sue Pleasant. Whether they stayed together, separated, or something worse, we still don't know. But now that we've traced everything we can about the Pleasant story, let's piece it all together and walk through the complete timeline of their family. Around the same time across SimCity, several families welcome new children. Myron and Irma Oldie have a son named Herb. Bruno and Mammy Rugburn have a daughter named Coral, though Mammy dies mysteriously before meeting her. Les and Kinda Pleasant have a son named Jeff. Marshall and Melinda Danders have a daughter named Diane. Benjamin and Susan Burb have a son named Brad. And William and Anastasia Marsh have a daughter named Tiffany. Years later, these children grow up and form families of their own. Herb Oldie marries Coral Rugburn, though tragedy strikes when Herb's mother Irma dies before their wedding and Coral's father Bruno passes away soon after. Jeff Pleasant marries Diane Danders, and Brad Burb marries Tiffany Marsh. Over the next few years, their parents, Les and Kinda Pleasant, Marshall and Melinda Danders, Benjamin and Susan Burb, and William and Anastasia Marsh also pass away. Jeff Pleasant joins the military, and Diane gives birth to Daniel Pleasant. Herb and Coral Oldie discover they can't conceive, so they adopt Mary Sue. Herb's father, Myron, dies soon after. Jeff and Diane later welcome a second child, Jennifer Pleasant. Brad and Tiffany Burb have a son named Johnny Burb. The Pleasants move to Old Town so Jeff can grow his military career and hopefully achieve his dream of going to Mars. The Burbs move there as well to escape city life, something Tiffany deeply resents Brad for. Eventually, the Oldies also settle in Old Town. As children, Mary Sue Oldie becomes best friends with Daniel Pleasant and Cassandra Goth. Johnny Burb and Jennifer Pleasant also grow up together as best friends. When they reach their teenage years, Johnny and Jennifer start dating, and Daniel and Mary Sue begin dating too, though she initially rejects him before eventually falling for him. As a young adult, Daniel joins the athletic career, rises through the ranks, and marries Mary Sue. They honeymoon at Sunlit Tides, where Daniel possibly has an early fling with Lurita Pepper, a local widow. Not long after, Johnny, now going by John, marries Jennifer Pleasant. His father, Brad Burb, dies shortly afterward. Daniel and Mary Sue welcome twin daughters, Angela and Lilith Pleasant. Sometime after their birth, Diane and Jeff Pleasant both pass away, with Jeff never realizing his dreams of traveling to Mars, something Daniel carries guilt for the rest of his life. The family relocates to Pleasantview, where problems soon begin. Mary Sue throws herself into her career as a political intern, Daniel favors Angela over Lilith, and Lilith grows up feeling neglected. During this time, Daniel kisses Kaylin Langerak for the first time, setting the stage for his later affair. Jennifer and John Burb welcome a daughter named Lucy. Tragically, John's mother Tiffany dies soon after Lucy's birth. Angela and Lilith's rivalry intensifies as teens, fueled by their parents' favoritism and neglect. Daniel eventually begins a full-blown affair with Kaylin Langerak. Despite their troubled upbringing, Angela and Lilith eventually reconcile as they get older. Both twins attend college in Britechester, each at a different university, but living together in a house bought by their parents. Angela studies art history at the University of Britechester, while Lilith studies villainy at Foxbury Institute. And with that, the story of the Pleasant family comes to a close. For now. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for taking this journey with me. I hope that this deep dive helped you better understand the lore of The Sims and the complicated webs that is the Pleasant's chaotic life. If you've got your own theories, or if you totally disagree with mine, I want to hear them. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're there, let me know which Sim or Sim family you'd like me to cover next. Making these videos, keeping up with weekly shorts, and balancing a full-time job is a lot. So if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep this going, consider joining my Patreon. The link's in the description, and to my current patrons, thank you. Your support truly means the world to me. And hey, if you want to hang out live, watch me play The Sims and other cozy games, come say hi on Twitch at twitch.tv/mynameisgons. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'd love to see you there. Alright, until next time, stay curious, stay cozy, and I'll see you in the next one.